Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is Jerry from People Matters. Thank you for joining us for this webcast today in partnership with People Strong. So our topic for today is leveraging conversational interfaces to enhance productivity. This is going to be a case study of Aditya Birla Capital Story. So before moving to this session, I'm going to give you a bit of a context on the topic in the form of questions. So here's what we'll cover. What are some of the macro and socio-economic trends that are pushing organizations to design connected enterprises? How are conversational interfaces taking the front seat in enterprise communication? And what does a step-by-step process look like, right? From identification to assessing to deploying, what are the steps involved? What are some of the successes in adapting these practices? And how is an Indian multinational conglomerate that has over 1 lakh employees leveraging such a platform? What are some of their key learnings? What are their challenges? And what are some success stories that they have to share? So we have the privilege of having with us Suresh Mani, who is the Head HR Operations and Shared Services at Aditya Birla Capital. Suresh is a senior HR professional who drives strategic HR initiatives to realize bottom line results and enhance employee engagement. He's had extensive experience with global companies across countries to improve their global HR practices. So we also have with us Ayan Das, who is the founding member and head of customer success at People Strong. And Ayan has over 11 years of experience, and he's championed multiple large and medium-sized tech implementations. He's also successfully set up and run one of India's first 1-800 toll-free HR help desk. So his efforts on customer success is seen and win awards in the APAC region. Our partner for today's webcast is People Strong. Since 2005, the company has been offering cutting-edge technology solutions in the space of recruitment, employee lifecycle management, payroll, compliance, and analytics, with over 175 plus customers and 500,000 users. It's a brand that's known for innovation. So People Strong has many firsts to its name, the recent one being its first native HR app, which aims to transform the future of work. So we have saved time for you to ask questions at the end of this webcast. So for those of you, if you're joining us live, you can submit and post your questions at any time using the chat feature. We will try to respond to as many questions as time allows. So we have an exciting discussion today ahead of us. So without any further delay, let me invite Suresh and Ayan to take over. Over to you.
Thank you, Jerry. Good afternoon, everyone. It's me, Ayan, from the People Strong team with me. Very happy to have Suresh. Personally, I've known Suresh for almost a decade now. He's been a change agent and a transformation specialist, specifically for Aditya Birla Capital. And our relationship goes back almost, since 2008, when Aditya Birla Capital, one of the early movers in the HR transformation journey, collaborated with People Strong to start their shared services journey. So if I have to look at the HR transformation journey of AB Capital, we can look at it into three phases. The first phase was more towards consolidation and standardization of HR processes of such a complex organization, having multiple business unit and a very distributed workforce. The second phase was a very strong approach towards having a tech-driven HR function, where the focus was towards giving ease to the employees and more towards compliance and accurate HR service delivery. The third phase, which is now and the immediate future that I can see, and Suresh definitely would want to add, is where HR is truly partnering with business and entering into a phase where they are wanting to impact employee productivity and employees connect with the business. So Suresh can add more towards the journey, and both of us will collaborate and take the conversation forward. Over to you, Suresh, as of now.
So it was a very interesting journey when we started the shared services. So it was more focused on how the process would work for the organization. Though the platform was available, we were trying to do the platform depending upon the specific units. As you would be knowing, Aditya Birla Capital has around 13 different entities, starting from insurance, mutual fund, or you talk about health insurance. Then we have wealth management and non-financials products. So it is diverse. So we also have to align to various regulators. So hence the process execution for employee also becomes a little complex in nature. Added to that, we're also spread across around 400 plus location in Pan India. So the complexity further becomes difficult, and we have to look at how to make the process as common or as standard as possible, so that it touches the different business, but it also maintains the same experience. So that's where we tied up with. We looked at various partners, and then we came out with the journey with People Strong. So the initial days we had help desk support, and now we have the technology platform which helps us in managing the transactions or the life cycle of employee much in a more structured and more seamless way. It's all journey has begun. We have a long way to go though, but we like to also share that as we are in the journey, we also realize that we can do a lot more. So one of the things we were looking at how a technology, while we are making process into a digital form and making it simpler for employee, how it can be collaborative. So now recently we have launched a product called Messenger. The Messenger talks about how it can collaborate within the organization at a unit level, or it can be at a function level or the subgroup level, so that the cascading of communication can be better. So that's where we are moving towards a journey.
Sure. So, just to add quickly, Gartner predicts that by 2019, 2020, the user interaction, with the machine, it is going to be universally accepted, and that is going to become a part of everyday life. While we were trying to implement the conversational interface, what was extremely important for us to understand was that what would be the right technology, right? And how are we supporting the technology with the right data, with the right use case, and what's the design going to be like, and the cultural mindset of the organization. So all of these come into extremely a critical stage, and then a very very detailed understanding of the existing processes on the system, and how does it eventually culminate into the collaboration platform. Before we get into the ABCAP story, I would want you to look at some of the global numbers. So what we are looking at is almost 20% of the employees' productive time goes into coordination and managing work-life specific transactions. These could be queries, could be any service request. From there, almost 30% of these tasks that we see are dependent on other stakeholders or other departments. And almost 50% of these queries or transactions go unanswered even after 24 hours of these being registered. So while we were looking at the problem statement of getting a distributed workforce together, we also wanted to answer all of these questions. So whatever that we wanted to implement for ABCAP, we definitely wanted to answer all of these questions. So, Suresh, I would want you to, tell us in terms of how did the journey happen. So now that we have a messenger, which is of course in the early stages of its implementation, what is the approach that the HR team is taking in terms of driving the adoption of the messenger? One of the traditional challenges have been, we've got multiple other messaging services available. Having an enterprise messenger in place, how are you driving it? How do you see the value getting created for the businesses?
So one thing is like there was a lot of calibration we were looking internally how to make this messenger work better. We all know that if it's going to be an enterprise solution, it is going to help us in having a more secure conversation wherein the employee and the supervisor or the organization can capture the information within the restricted platform. So that helps the communication more better. Also, if you want to drive some certain, transaction or a behavior, that also gives an opportunity to cascade. Today, wherein most of us are willing to connect, or we are connected with Twitter or Facebook or through WhatsApp. This enterprise solution gives an opportunity to be within the organization and also helps to connect with various people in organization in sharing the knowledge too. So one thing, so this is just a first step we have taken it. So some of the drivers which we are looking upon or we would be driving on is how we can do it at a sales level, how we can have it as a task level. Also, we are looking at how we can drive certain, fun element into it so that the engagement also can be driven so that the participation can be a driving factor. So this entire approach we are looking at the bottom top. So as I said, it's a baby step. So we have a long way to go, but we are taking those small steps.
Okay, so to add on to what Suresh said, I'll elaborate a bit because being a part of the implementation and and also further helping the intelligence go into the system. The fundamental structure of the system, the messaging service allows you to have different business group created. So you can have a group created for your sales function. You can have a group created, say for example, your finance function. You can have a group created for your HR function, and then you can drive various agendas through all of these different groups. These are configurable, and you can have as many groups as possible, and you can drive your function specific agenda through these groups. So messaging app, definitely what we spoke about is one of the things that we implemented. Apart from that, one thing which definitely is being worked upon and coming up very fast, and we are in the phase of implementing, is the chat bot. It's an intelligent system that helps the employee not be dependent on the organization's time to respond back to any of their queries or any of their needs. The chatbot definitely helps in responding to the employee at any point of time wherever they are available. Suresh, if you could add anything around the chatbot implementation.
So one of the good thing is like when we were looking at chatbot, because since we had a longer relationship with a help desk team, there was a lot of conversation, there was a lot of queries were being stored and kept. So the data of almost 4-5 years were available. So that is one thing. So we thought, when you want to set up a chatbot, you need a lot of information to have the natural learning process more smoother. And also, since we are in a continuous journey of transformation as a business too, so we also looked at what is the new policies and things that we have. What are the policies that have got transformed and changed, and how we can adopt. So as a step one on a pilot basis, we said like we'll look at a transaction level chatbot. For example, let's put our leave policy and the leave related queries into it. So how chatbot can respond. Then we looked at attendance as a activity, and since we are so diverse and we are spread across in various part of the country, most of the time employee would not know what are the holidays and things like that. So why can't we have that facility and also make it little entertaining and engaging, we also, we wanted something, a chatbot which can be more friendly and approachable. So the assistant which we have implemented, we could observe these kind of responses happens. It helps not only respond to employees on the terms of quickly leave, talks about attendance. So at times I used to get calls from some of the senior folks that, hey, what is the status of the attendance, and then the connectivity is always sometimes a challenge, but they came back and said like this, Jenny is more helpful. The chatbot is what we call as Jenny here. So it helpful. So they were able to find the status, and it also they shared like this some of the questions what they could ask. It could respond. Sometimes it's on a more lighter side. A question were asked like, what is going to be my increase in the salary? So Jenny responded like, depends upon your how you work yourself. So they liked it. So that's how we are seeing the journey. It's all first step. We are a long way to go, but we are seeing that journey. Now we are trying out in putting the policies in place, and that is going to be another very interesting phase that we would experience. So I think we are in the right direction, and we hope this chatbot will help us not only responding to employee creating engagement, also it will reduce the query what we receive on a monthly basis. Though we could see small trend change, however, our queries are around 4,000, 5,000 in a month for a base of 15,000 organization that we have. So we could see that query responses is coming down. So I think that's the right direction that we could think we should be there.
All right, great to know, Suresh. Also, just wanted to understand from your end, right, the entire implementation of the messaging app and the chatbot. How did you do? What was it, a top-down approach that you took, or a bottoms-up approach?
And this is the first step we have taken it. It's more more on a pilot phase which we are experimenting. So we are making every employee to download as a bottom-up approach, and we are getting the employees' experiences. We're cascading those experience back to the employee, and then we are seeing the trend that employees started using more and more. So I could see some of the groups have been started, some of the task force have been started. So we are trying to make it as a natural progress of communication or collaboration through this technology. So we are in that phase now.
All right. So also, for everyone's, understanding, just wanted to add, there is this, the intelligence behind the chatbot is something which is very critical, right? And we were pretty blessed that way, because we had a huge repository of the queries of the employees, since we were managing the help desk of AB Capital. So all of these had gone into the intelligence of Genie, and that is what makes it more interesting and conversational for the employees. So this is how the demographic looks for Aditya Birla Capital. We're talking about 14,000 employees and 600 plus branches. So with this one platform which helps connect with the employees, Suresh here sitting at Gurgaon can send out or run campaigns across these 600 branches if required. These can be campaigns related to leave in attendance. These can be campaigns related to certain other policy adherence. So all of these definitely help bring all the employees together. So Suresh, just quickly wanted to understand what are the current challenges that you're facing in terms of the implementation of the messenger and the chatbot.
So one of the challenges is like it's an organization is of end resources coming into the system, so connecting with them and then making them as a process. So though we have a strong onboarding process, we still see there can be an improvement on how we can make people to use. The second challenge is like the conversation, more engaging platform, because it's just a small step we have taken it. So we are experiencing that employee volunteering to come into this. So that's where we are seeing some challenges. How what is that informing? And people, when they go in, they're able to see it. So initial hiccups of saying like, will I be monitored, or things like that. So those are the small glitches that we are facing now. But I think as we go in the journey, we'll have more clarity towards executing it better.
So any specific steps that you took to ensure that the new joiners are aware about, because if we drive the adoption at the very start, once the person is a part of the organization, right, it becomes easy at the entry. So any specific initiative that you took?
So one thing is like, whenever there is an onboarding, we do onboarding connect before even an employee joins the organization. A candidate becomes an employee. So in that step, we communicate about what are the applications and systems we have. So the employee experience that in the first instant, and then there is a welcome call is being given on how to use the onboarding system. Even there is an emphasis. Post which there is a welcome call, message goes to the employee, and along with the message, we also talk about how this application, the app helps us, as well as we capture the new employees, connect with some of them on a random basis, because in a month we get around 600 odd joinees. So we connect with them on a random basis. We understand their experience, and we communicate back to those employees about what has been the other new joinees experience. So by doing that, we are seeing more trend increasing in getting adoption towards the technology.
All right, great. So anything that is lined up, for the future? So I would want.
So some of the things that we have been discussing is like how Jenny can be more helpful. So in that, I could understand that it can help in give the organization, and how the employee can in terms of their organization structure per se, that can be responded. Then having more structured approach on the policies, because we can currently, it is little generic, it is going towards more micro. That activity is another thing is coming out, is what we could see. Then we also looking at reimbursement related notification that Jenny sends automatically. Suppose if I click my reimbursement bills, so notification goes, so that it becomes easier, and it also responds this status, so that if I'm a Salesforce, I'll be able to handle my reimbursement much easier, and also respond to the queries and understand my limitations and how I can do that. It's going to be one thing which coming as a feature now. We're also talking on related to investment declaration, where it helps in responding with how to invest and things like that, so that it helps the employee to understand how the investment need to be done. So it becomes a real great support for employee to do the right thing. It also gives investment balance left under ETC as a notification process. So these are some of the features, and something which is on a lighter side, maybe we may not opt, but I have an option of using, since we are in India, we can see the cricket score quite often. So we want to know what is the score. So the Jenny is getting created in that perspective. That's a good thing, which maybe we might, I'm not sure whether we'll adopt, but it's a good thing as an individual. I think it will help.
Sure. So, for everyone's understanding, just a quick, extremely, short, update on how this entire, solution works. So we have a natural language processing system, right, which does a POS on any sentence that is posted on the messenger. So the chatbot does a part of speech recognition. It identifies whether it's a noun, it's a verb, or an adjective, and then it converts it into a vector format. And once that is done, it moves into machine learning, and we use the classified algorithm, and then it converts into an intent and goes into the entire repository, from where it understands what is that which needs to be answered. This is contextual as well, so not necessarily that you need to do a very structured conversation with the bot. It has the capacity and the capability to read and go through multiple threads, and to be able to answer to your specific question. So apart from just being a bot answering to your queries, as Suresh mentioned, it also works as an intelligent assistant. It can some of the traditional challenges that the HR team faces, say for example, most of the times you come across a scenario where your database of the employees are not complete, and you run huge campaigns to get that done. It becomes extremely easy with this intelligent assistant. It can send you reminders of the specific areas that are not complete in the employee's profile. Say for example, the blood group, or maybe say any of your dependent details not updated. It can also give you insights the way you want to configure it. It can give you insights about attrition in your specific area of business. It can also talk about, say for example, the LNOD team, the learning and development team, has launched or a campaign, and you are yet to register to that campaign, and it starts tomorrow. It can serve as a reminder as well, and it can tell you that you need to register for your learning and development campaign. So just from from just a messaging service which helps you connect with the employees, to an automated environment where it can answer to your queries and transaction, to becoming an intelligent assistant where it proactively gives you prompt to manage your different life cycle queries or transaction. That is how we progress in this entire environment of conversational interface. Some of the impact, definitely we spoke about it. Suresh, you would want to add?
So yes, as I said, it's initial stages. We are there, but we could see an impact in real time. We are seeing most employees using some of their transaction which they used to spend time during office hours. It is moved more towards at their leisure or during on the go kind. So that is an experience we are seeing. The communication as such, still we are a long way to go. We've just started it, so I'm not able to comment, but yes, there is a slide we can see the small groups are forming, having their communication, understanding what how the product is helping them. So especially I got some feedback that it has helped in real time and exchanging some information which has helped the people who are in different location to address and resolve problems. So those are the things that have happened. So that also we could see. And also we can see, like, the transaction level which we spoke about on Jenny, where some of the leave details or attendance, where the queries which normally get hits at a help desk level, that has drastically, I could see that maybe it used to be like 1,200 queries. Now I'm seeing those query numbers are getting increased to reduced. So it's around 100 or 300, 200 type of queries is what getting raised. And as I shared that it's the initial stages, we are seeing some sharing of information through Jenny, through Messenger, which is helping us to take it to a different impact. We are seeing the energy levels of employees also is there positive, where we could see that they're seeing that yes, this can be the future way of looking at it, engaging with the workforce as such. So these are some of the things impact I think we could experience now.
So, before we move to the questions, one last thing that I would definitely want to add, this is definitely a continuous journey. It's not that you implement it at one go and, you're done with the system and you expect the system to perform the way it is. Definitely the first stage is making your team, at least the core team, the core HR team, understand how this entire setup works, because many a times it happens that you've implemented this environment and people start expecting a lot without setting up the system accordingly. So you need to understand how the system works. That's one. The second thing, which is extremely important, is how are you continuously improving the knowledge base of your AI or your chatbot environment. So be it your policies, be it your processes, be it any other queries, you need to devote and dedicate time. Yes, of course, there is a continuous learning process with the system, but then again, the information that you keep on adding definitely makes it more intelligent and more conversational, and makes it extremely effective with the employee. I think these are the two areas that I wanted to add. And what is also important is that you need to understand that it's not whether you want to do it. This is definitely today's need to manage such a diverse and a distributed workforce. So it is when and how you invest in the technology and what's the value that you get out of it. And of course, please do plan for the risk adoption. Definitely one of the areas to watch out for. And and the way you drive your campaign, that becomes also extremely critical. Anything that you want to add, Suresh? All right, thank you so much for your time. I think we are ready for the questions.
Right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Ayan and Suresh, for sharing those insights. So we'll move on to the questions, and I would also encourage our viewers to send in more questions if you have any. So which areas are you seeing across the employee life cycle? Where is chatbots being used the most? Of course, we spoke about the whole range of areas where we could apply, right, from L&D to recruitment to investment declaration. But where are you seeing it applied the most?
The most would be like every employee gets his paycheck.
Right.
That's the time he wakes up and has a lot of questions.
Okay.
So that's a time would be a more interesting phase, and also during difficult times where he wants to take some quick vacation or something, personal exigency or something. So that's the time where he might use it more. And otherwise, since the chatbot per se, if you make it more engaging, you make it more knowledgeful, the more and more data you put in, it not only help in sharing knowledge, so that employee gets to know what is happening in the organization, maybe in the form of a policies, or it can be form of a processes that knowledge transfer. It could create entire life cycle engagement. So it depends upon how a company wants to adopt it.
Okay. So can you, Ayan, you also spoke about this point about data. Can you speak a little bit more about that? You're talking about how do you improve the knowledge over time. What level of maturity does a company need to be in terms of their HR technology to adopt something like this? Like, do they need to have chatbot? I mean, do they need to have data that is structured and clean and ready to go and have over time, many years, they need to have a lot of solid data to implement this?
So, of course, what goes into the system needs to be in a structured format, right? However, to start off with, you can start off with your basic HR policies. Whatever FAQs that you've created, all of them can straight away go into your, the messaging, the chatbot interface. There is no separate effort required. As I said, for Aditya Birla Capital, right? We had this added benefit of having this huge repository, right? So all of those intelligence could be, baked it and one shot, but you can build it over the period of time, right? But to start off with, you can start with your fundamental FAQ around your HR policies, and then you can keep on building it.
See, basically, I feel like it's all how much usage you're going to build. So we also experience it's not about the data per se, it also how the usage happens. The more and more the use, the language gets, the system also starts learning. The content becomes more polished. The response becomes better. So what I could sense is not only that one is the data structure has to be of quality. However, having said that, this how it is being used and refined on a periodic basis, that would help better and better.
Right. So sort of just understanding the queries that people are asking and refining your data accordingly. Right. Okay. So so we have a question from Prathna. And the question is, how does the knowledge of chatting with a bot versus a human affect the success of something like this?
Affects the, sorry, didn't get the last one.
Okay, so human touch versus the chatbot.
Yes.
So it is like how I talk to my daughter face to face versus I make my robot to talk. So,
right.
So it depends. Human touch has its own value. We cannot replace that. But when you're having a large population spread across, some element of response, some element of engagement can replace. But human interface cannot be replaced, honestly.
Right, and also many a times our realization has been there are two different segments, right? When an employee is expecting a human touch and when an employee is expecting a faster response, right? Say for example, you want to give your payslip, submit your payslip somewhere, right? A human touch there is not necessary at all, right? So you just type in payslip and you get your payslip. That is saving a lot of time. Of course, there are events in an employee life cycle where a human touch is necessary and that cannot be denied. But for basic elementary transaction, I think
the chatbot is basically for my queries.
For my queries,
which needs quick response. It's a good supplement to use. But there could be transactions or event where human touch is required.
Definitely.
There, I think we
will always need a
human touch.
Absolutely. Great, fantastic. So you spoke a little bit about the user experience part now, of course, with the human touch point. Can you also talk about the accessibility? Now, there's a lot of use of mobile, right, here, and people can use it from anytime, anywhere. How does it make that job easier? So it's just like an app that you use on your phone, just like any other app?
Yeah, it's just like an app. The way you use your Facebook or
the way you use any other messenger.
Any other messenger.
Right.
It's a similar thing, and Jenny is like your chatbot, so it helps you on the go.
Yeah. So couple of interesting features also. Say for example, you being a line manager of, say for example, a sales force which is spread across the country. You wake up in the morning, your assistant had already given you a list of employees who have their birthdays already, so you can straight away send those birthday messages, or say for example the work anniversary messages, you can straight away launch it from the chatbot. So you're not dependent on any database. The system is intelligent enough, identifies your area of work and gives you the information accordingly.
And also I've experienced, like, if somebody is traveling to a location, the Jenny has a facility of mapping. Since you are in the enterprise, you open the app, you want to know what are the restaurants nearby, so quickly go out.
So all of these have also been added. So you want to figure out a restaurant, you want to figure out a hotel, all of that can be mapped.
Right, fantastic. There's a question by Abhinav Sharma, and he wants to ask, there might be a situation where a chatbot might take longer to solve problems and may cause productivity loss. So is this because it's ultimately going to learn based on NLP?
All right. So you wanted to answer? Okay. So what we've done here, we also understand that the intelligence grows gradually. Although we make it as robust as possible by the time we launch it, but what we've done here, say a query is posted, and Genie is not able to answer or not able to identify the specific area where it can go back and answer to the employee. It immediately routes the query to one of the HR spokes to be answered. So we don't rely on this time of getting the intelligence built into the system. The moment we identify that the system is not able to answer, a ticket gets generated and it goes to an HR spok to be answered. So that is how we manage it currently. But the best part is once the query is answered, it forms a part of the Genie repository. So next time if there is a query that comes in, right, it gets answered from Genie directly.
Okay, that's nice. Okay, so here we have another question that is about how long will it take to move from natural language processing to natural language understanding? It's a very futuristic question.
That definitely is going to take some time. I think you're talking about an area which is into deep learning. But currently what we are doing is more around the natural learning processing. But yes, that is what the future is. But we are not at that stage at this point of time.
Right, fantastic. So you spoke a little bit about adoption, Suresh, a little earlier, what you did in terms of the onboarding. How else did you push adoption, drive adoption? Any communication campaigns that you did over time, sustained over time?
No, as I shared, it's a baby step we have taken it. It's recently got launched. So one of the thought process and execution what is happening currently is like we get feedback from the employee and their feedback, their inputs, and the way they have experienced, that goes as a communication. So it goes like employee communicating about the product, the features. So when employee himself or herself communicates, the reach to the other employee becomes more larger. So that's how we are seeing that trend helping. So that becomes like a bottom to top approach. So we are seeing that trend. So it's a very small baby step we have taken. Only recently it will take some more time to give you more different levels where we reach. So we have a lot of thought process, but we are taking a step-by-step approach now.
Right, right. So it's more of word of mouth that's helping you.
Yeah,
that's how you want to go.
Paid campaign goes, but it's all more of word of mouth. You rightly said.
Okay, great. So another question is about, a little earlier, I think you highlighted about the Gartner buckets, about, the right data use case, and also sort of the cultural mindset of the organization. Do you think that there are specific organizational cultures that are more easily adaptable to this kind of a technology shift, or is it for everyone?
No, it depends upon, I think, the need and the industry you are in. I've experienced with some of my colleagues, like IT industry, that option might be much faster. Maybe in a KPO or a BPO industry, it might be faster. We are in a financial service industry. It is in segmented approach. So we are seeing, maybe my technical team, my IT wing, or my sales force, where I'm seeing adoption is there. Else, it's a culture that we have to drive. So it's a digital culture. Part of that.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So we have another question from Shruti Chilani, and is this like a 24/7 HR support, or can we have some small sessions on HR policies on chatbots?
Yes.
Or do we mean, yeah.
In a nutshell, you can definitely call it, your HR assistant available for you 24/7, right? Apart from that, yes, definitely the messaging services that can help you run, any HR specific policy campaign. If you have your user group created, say for example, at specific time in the year, you might want to run your code of conduct, campaign, right, across the organization. You can use the messenger to run your code of conduct campaign. Also, what happens is many a times, employees want to understand certain policies. You can train the chatbot. Say for example, you want to understand about your vehicle policy. You just punch in those details, ask the question to the chatbot. It'll let you know about the policy. So both the things are possible.
Right. Okay, fantastic. So what are some of the key challenge areas that Indian companies are facing? I mean, and you work with multiple clients. With the adoption of something like a chatbot, what do they face? Is the primary challenge for them data, or is it something else?
One of the challenges that we face is, in terms of first setting up this entire environment, right? My personal learning has been, it is very, very important to make the core team understand how this entire thing works, because many a times we launch it and then we start getting a lot of questions that the bot is not able to answer my query, or why the bot is not able to answer, it is not working properly. However, once we do a root cause analysis, we figure out that at the very initial stage, even at the time of launch, we've not built that intelligence. So these are some of the initial deterrents. If you're not happy with the response at the start, you might not want to use the chatbot. So with the core team, you need to let them know how this entire setup works, and also at the same time, you need to create task force and champions who will drive this across the organization. They can be your change agents. They will drive this across the organization, how this entire system works, and eventually, this becomes a part of your normal way of working.
Right. Fantastic. We have a question from Abhishek Srivastav, and he wants to know, when will we move to SpeakBot from chatbot? Don't you think it would be more better and efficient to have a SpeakBot?
Yes, of course. I think this is more indicated towards the intelligent assistant that we spoke about, the Series and the Cortanas. Definitely, the more time goes, we would want to move to an environment where instead of return message that you get from a chatbot, you get a voice response that can be built eventually.
Right. Okay, so there's another question from Shruti, and this question is, how are you ensuring that a chatbot is not getting misused for unethical reasons? And is there a scope for having disciplinary action in that case?
Right. So
I think what we have observed because we have seen some experience where people try to use the chatbot to asking some questions maybe inappropriate. Chatbot also responds back saying like this is an inappropriate question, so that I think most of mature workforce immediately understand that if it continues, then those data is always available for us for understanding and look at it for taking appropriate action. But we have not reached there. But what I have observed, if there is some inappropriate question comes in, immediately the chatbot gives a very mature response saying this is inappropriate, I may not be in a position to answer this, you may want to correct it. So that helps employee also to understand, yes, somebody is watching them too.
Right. And the other part is, unlike any other messaging solution, the entire database is linked with the employee database. So your active and inactive employees gets managed automatically. So say for example, if today I am a part of AB Capital, I have the messaging service or the bot service available. Tomorrow, if I'm not a part of AB Capital, this gets deactivated automatically. So
Right.
being out of the organization, trying to do something with the bot, that's not possible. That's one. And then again, it's also about how you drive your campaigns, and it's striking a fine balance between the personal and professional, because you will have your own groups, there will be conversation, but also since the people know that this is a this is a professional environment of messaging that we are into, you typically don't come across such scenarios.
Right. Fantastic. And I know we spoke a little bit in that conversation about using the chatbot to update about scores, but don't you think that hampers productivity, or?
You'll be able to answer it.
That's why I made it my statement clearly. Maybe I may not be using it,
Right.
but it's a good thing to have because I love cricket, so good thing to have. How you use it is more important because it can also improve the productivity.
Yeah.
If you see a quick score, Jenny gives an immediate response, so that my focus today, most of us work in that way. So I don't think to be, but definitely in our environment we will not be implementing it.
Right. Fantastic. So that's about the questions that we had. Is there something else that you want to cover?
No, I think we've covered most of it. I think we covered a lot through the questions as well. Anything that you want to add, Suresh? Nothing from our side.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ayan and Suresh. So with that question answer session, we wrap this session. And if we have any further questions, I'm going to direct that to Ayan and Suresh to take them offline. Once again, thanks to our webcast partner and our speakers for sharing their information with us today. Meanwhile, you can provide your feedback on the survey link that's provided on the chat section. Your input matters to us. Stay tuned for more such exciting sessions. That concludes our webcast for today. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.